In the move towards sustainability and meeting our environmental goals for the future, we often need to examine the raw materials we use in the manufacture of the everyday products that we buy and own. It is often those raw materials that are the biggest cause for concern, and it is here where change needs to take place. Forest-based industries are working hard to innovate, invest, and make necessary changes to contribute to the overall circular economy and the ambitions of the Green Deal.
Anything you can do from fossil raw materials, you can also do from wood, ranging from food industry to green chemicals, and of course, sustainable textiles. We are creating green jobs. We are investing in Europe, actually twice as much as other industries. Everybody cares about forest, and we tend to have really strong emotional link to it. Yet it's actually surprising that people know very little about it. We have never had so much forest in Europe as we have now since medieval times. And the growth of forest in one single year in Europe is 612 million cubic meters. It's a space where you could fit the entire global population of human beings, of 8 billion people. And that's the growth of forest in Europe in one single year alone. So we have a good resource, but of course we have to take good care of it. Sustainability is a term that was coined as a forestry term over 300 years ago to make sure that you don't harvest more than you can grow. And this is still the core of our industry. So now it's increasingly, of course, also about the quality of the forest and biodiversity in the forest and making sure that all the many functions of the forest can actually deliver to the society, not just the quantity of the wood. Since we are becoming increasingly circular, also the value chain becomes circular, so what you pass down to your customers will come back to you in recycling. And I think this will become also important for the textile industry.
Well, every year more than 100 million tons of textile fibers are produced in the world, and only a small fraction of that is recycled. One of the bigger challenges with the recycling in the textile industry is the recycling of blended fabrics. And Södra is first in the world to have a solution to this. We are able to separate polyester out of polycotton, textiles like this. We treat them, so we completely remove polyester, and the cotton part, which actually consists of cellulose, just the cellulose that you find in wood. We blend those two together and we have a product which is called dissolving pulp that our customers can use to produce viscose fibers or lyocell fibers, partly based on recycled materials. On the technical side, when it comes to treating polycotton, we are far ahead. But when it comes to changing the market, we need the right policy instruments. But it's not always about just recycling, it's also about incorporation of renewable materials that is just as important. If we should phase out fossil-based materials in the textile industry and supply it with renewable materials, then it's important that the forest raw material doesn't decrease.
There are some misconceptions about forest management and harvesting practices. Behind us we have an older forest, and in front of us we have an area that has been fairly recently felled and replanted. And this is typical of how the forest looks like in southern Sweden. As a rule, our felling areas are small, and of course it is a dramatic change to what it was, but it is a lot of planning and thought behind it. We save dead wood and create new dead wood. In order to protect the forest waterways, we establish buffer zones against the watercourses, and we leave a number of trees and shrubs, all in order to promote a higher biodiversity in the future, in the production forest as well. We work according to UN's global sustainability goals, which means that we strive to find a good balance between social, economic, environmental and climate goals.
If we start to think about Cepi, or otherwise the Confederation of European Paper Industries, I think what we should first say is that we're providing the renewable raw material that happens to be also low carbon and circular, which is called wood fibers, to a variety of downstream uses and that actually produce a range of different bio-based products, including textiles. We're already a heavy investor in the bioeconomy. We're already bio-based because we use renewable wood fibers. But the idea is to take it a bit further and become a hub of the European bioeconomy. When it comes to using fibers for textiles, that would be definitely an area where we would like to emphasize the most. And we do actually use every part of the tree.
Kura is a textile fiber made out of wood, and namely made out of paper-grade pulp. Typically, the commercial textile fibers made out of wood are made using dissolving pulp, but here we are using paper-grade pulp. In the market of different textile fibers, the biggest raw materials are fossil-based resources and cotton, and they both come with their own challenges and problems. So we want to be developing a new textile fiber which would be preferred and much more sustainable than the benchmark. The demand for textile fibers, all textile fibers, is expected to grow over the next years. So that means that we have to come up with more circular and more sustainable ways of producing textile fibers in the future, and this requires innovation. 75% of the land area in Finland is forest in Finland, so the forest industry, which is utilizing the wood from these forests, is a significant part of the Finnish society. The parent company of Metsä Group is actually a cooperative of over 100,000 Finnish forest owners, private people and families. So the wood which we are utilizing for many of the different products for textile fibers in the future comes from these private people and families in Finland. This means that they take care of the forest in a very sustainable way. The forest certification level in Finland is very high. You see many of the forest industry companies developing new technologies for the textile value chain, and also startup companies coming up with their ideas. And the European Commission is also supporting research and development and innovation. For instance, the bio-based industries joint undertaking has been one of the leading instruments in this field. For us, Cepi is a very important tool for communicating with the EU policymakers. For Cepi, sustainability and competitiveness of companies go hand in hand, and that's definitely the message we also want to take to Brussels and elsewhere.
There is a drive to use renewable fibers to create textiles. Actually, our tradition of creating cellulosic fibers is over 100 years old, and they are commercially available. They encompass the best of both worlds. They are malleable, which is what synthetic fibers also do, but at the same time they have comfort, which is associated with natural fibers. They cause less water stress than materials like cotton.
Unleashing the potential of sustainable textiles made from forest fibers comes with one essential condition: making sure that European forests stay healthy and continue to grow. But it is not just in Europe where there is this focus on sustainable forestry. Cepi is a global renewable resource company headquartered in South Africa that is working with its European counterparts to ensure these same principles apply there.
In South Africa, we essentially have two types of forests that cover a relatively small percent of land mass versus forests in Europe. So we have natural forests, which have been protected for well over 100 years, and these forests only cover less than 0.5% of land mass. And then you have plantation forests. These were planted into grasslands as early as the 1930s and represent 1% of land mass, and these plantations are used for commercial purposes. And I'd say that plantation forestry in South Africa is quite unique in that it has actually served to protect natural forests and has served to increase the carbon pool in South Africa. So a key focus of sustainable forestry is improving the livelihoods of our rural communities. We are particularly proud of our 38-year community farming project called Cepi Kalisa. So this is quite a large rural program that involves 3,600 community farmers, many of which are female. So when you look at the future demand for textiles, from a forestry virgin raw material point of view, our innovation efforts are focused on climate adaptation. We have a very extensive tree breeding program, And this program is devised to develop trees that are resistant to extreme climate conditions, and it's also focused on ensuring that the trees can adapt to pests and diseases that we are continuously faced with as a result of climate change. Cepi is a South African multinational, and we have 9 pulp and paper operations across 7 countries in Europe. We're also a long-standing member of Cepi and firmly stand behind our sector's commitment to the EU Green Deal and achieving a circular bioeconomy. We're also a very critical and leading supplier of dissolving pulp into Europe, sold under the brand name Verve. And Verve is produced from sustainably managed forests, both in South Africa and in North America, and is predominantly used in the manufacture of textile fiber.
Wood is a renewable resource, a natural resource, and wood contains cellulose. And cellulose is the same raw material as cotton and linen is made of. So cellulose provides a number of excellent properties to the fashion industry, like wearing comfort, moisture management. It contributes to circular economy, and it is a cornerstone of our climate neutral target. For the retail and for the brands and for the consumer, transparency is important. They want to know exactly where the product's coming from, what are the environmental, social impacts. Then for the brands, they're defining targets in terms of what is a sustainable raw material and how to source sustainable raw materials. For us, it's important to have this transparency because there are more and more methodologies and tools coming up assessing the environmental and social performance of our products. So to track and trace our fibers along the value chain, we have implemented different technologies or methods to do it. First of all, we have internal identification system implemented into the fiber. This allows us to identify our fibers in the yarn stage, in the fabric and garment stage. Then we have an e-branding platform to provide information and services to customers. And then we have a track and traceability system in place we developed together with Textile Genesis. We use a blockchain technology to track it along the value chain so that we can be sure that the fiber ends up in the garment and that the fiber which is in the garment is really our fiber. Cepi actually provides a great platform to connect the industry partners and to engage industry partners. And it's very important to support the industry, to have a joint approach to come up with solutions for these upcoming challenges.
91% of our water used is actually returned back to the environment in good condition. Our industry has achieved 29% decarbonization since 2005. But of course, this is combined with industrial symbiosis, which means sharing materials, energy, heat with other sectors.
Sustainable sourcing is easier with collaboration, so you work with passing information along the value chain and you trust each other for the information. There's the European Green Deal that is deeply transforming the European economy. The way we move, the way we live, what we eat, what we wear, and how that all is produced. We are ready for this challenge. The long-term trend is on our side. The policy will accelerate the change that is needed, and the industry is prepared and investing in the future. So we are the industry of the future.